Welcome and thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. You know, in a world where we seem to hear about all the bad news about business bailouts and people declaring bankruptcy, people starting businesses and then losing everything, you'd think somewhere out there would be a lot of good news. Well, in fact, sometimes I believe there's a lot more good news than we're led on to believe. Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is someone who's going to be talking about how we can jumpstart our businesses in a more conscious direction. He is the founder of what is known as Intention Products, LLC, and Brand U. He's going to be talking with us today about how he can help small businesses get the clarity they're looking for so they can move in the direction of profitability and sustainability as well. I'd like to welcome to our program today our guest, W. Vito Montone. Vito, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your airwaves with us.
You bet. Now, it must be exciting to be in the kind of business that actually goes out and helps people without taking from someone else. Tell us about that.
Well, it is really fascinating. It's something that fuels us, and we're going to talk about that a little later in the call, but it really is quite a powerful and fueling place to have a purpose in which you're trying to have other people find that independence and strength in their own businesses. And it really is something that makes every day very exciting and interesting, and we're on roller coasters just like some of our members, so absolutely.
Now, I was just watching a documentary last night, a real basic one. It was called What's the Economy For Anyway? And the whole idea is how the United States as a country measures what it means to have a good economy, things like gross national product or GDP and things such as, growth and development. And it was really a fascinating journey they were talking about there, especially when it came to the economy back just before FDR took over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then FDR takes over, he's got his New Deal, but he put government into place to really watchdog, especially the financial industry. And then you take a look at what happened starting in the Reagan administration. He was saying, isn't it interesting how we're going through the same thing then as they did back in the Great Depression? It was all because of a lot of the deregulation of the financial sector. Now, from your experience, what could you shed light here about that kind of similarity?
Well, obviously there is a similarity, but all the numbers and everything was, drastically different. It was people running amiss, thinking that their actions would not have an impact on people,
mm-hmm.
right? And so we see a variety of financial systems kind of crashing. And it sounds strange to say this, but the good news is, well, they had to crash,
right?
Because otherwise we wouldn't have noticed.
Mm-hmm.
We would have been still continuously asleep at the wheel. So we had two parts of the equation. One, those that were affected were kind of asleep to what's really going on, and even though we can argue all sorts of legal points and who's really responsible, in reality, we kind of knew things didn't kind of make sense, but we didn't really take responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
And those on the other side were going, hey, greed is okay. We can manipulate this. We can put a formula in there that nobody understands, but everybody thinks is great, and we'll make money that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you put those two combos together, and what do you get? You get near catastrophe, right? And if we weren't in a modern time, it actually would have been the Depression because there wouldn't have been any controls.
Right.
Things would have just disappeared. People would have, jumping out of windows. It would just, the whole thing would have, gone away. But we have what we see nowadays is quicker and quicker recovery. Now, I'm not saying the recovery in the economic sense is completely done, because it's not. But recovery from just watching the ticker tapes and things, it would drop down and it's slowly coming back up. Okay, well it's the same as evolution. It's the same as in your personal life. You may learn about a behavior that you have, and the quicker you recover from that behavior is illustrating how well you're doing, how well you're recovering, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the relapse, even in exercise. The faster you recover after your exercise means you're healthier. So the good news is we're much healthier than we've ever been before, even though we made some classic wild mistakes.
Hmm. So you see things actually, especially for people who decide, I don't know if this is a good time, but the people who decide to be in business or who have small businesses, hang on, just keep doing what you're doing, and it should improve. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, I don't think it's hang on, because there is a difference. There's a wild difference, and when you have an adjustment like this, which is kind of a nice way to say scary recession, but when you see things like this happen, you can't do business as usual anymore.
Right.
Right? There's no tolerance for it. There's no gap. There's no okay, well, that's kind of sloppy, or I've got extra money in my pocket, I'll buy that anyway. So there's no more room for inefficiency like that, whether that's inefficiency of message, inefficiency of a value proposition. So there's a lot of things that can't be done the same. But if you hear the call, and I just realized as I was saying that somebody might out there think I'm talking about religion, because I was at an event of conscious capitalists, and the word call was used. If you hear the call, and all of a sudden a few people thought we were talking about religion. We're not. I mean, just if you notice it, right? You notice it, that there is something that needs to change, then it's an exciting time to make change, because everyone is jonesing for it right now, whether they're fully conscious of it or not. I do get on to rambling, and so I did just read something that was mind-boggling yesterday. Jim Cramer was actually reporting about Chipotle, and what was fascinating about it was almost the first time I heard someone talk about, Wall Street's not really getting Chipotle because they're just looking at the numbers.
Right.
There's something more there. They care about their customers. They bring quality food. They're concerned about organics. And here's a company that's majority owned by McDonald's. There is change happening, right? And so it's moving from quantitative to qualitative. And when we start to think of that, how does that translate to small business? And I've got a couple ideas of how that can translate.
Now, talk about how you came to do what you've been doing with both you and your wife, as I understand today, and how you decided what your mission was.
Well, it's really very simple and also kind of fascinating. I mean, we were moving into the larger and larger circles. I had done consulting in the Fortune 100. I had moved in producing in the entertainment industry. My wife was working for, and partner was working for, major brands and major advertising agencies. And they're, in a weird sense, even though they have more resources, they're just as unhealthy, meaning they're not always sure about what they're doing. They don't have a lot of clarity. They just throw more money at things until they can get it right. And it was very disappointing to me. And if we're going to have to do work like that, getting people clear, making sure they're truly making powerful decisions, and they really care about the products they're making, who would I rather work with? And I would rather work with small business and entrepreneurs. And the reason is, it's quiet. Most people don't acknowledge that 40 to 50%, depending on the different reporting agencies, of the economy, of the world's stability, is really created by small business.
Well, that's a fact.
Yep, it's just a fact.
They actually employ the most people as well. So.
That's right, but most people look at in the news all the time, what is the monolith doing,
Right.
And because they're smaller and there's more greater numbers, they're a little harder to get your arms around and a little harder to help. But we just felt that the true future of the world, not even the U.S., because this is something that's happening in different stages all around the world, is the entrepreneur and small business owner. That's where we'll have stability finally. And so that's where our vision changed from, we can do big consulting projects and keep upping the money and having that nice reinforcement of what we're doing, or we could try to be a part of a solution that is going to take years. And we started this journey 7 years ago.
Now, describe for our listeners what it means to be, I guess, in conscious business. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but maybe it really isn't as straightforward as people might think. Well,
I applaud you for acknowledging that it is actually straightforward, but, there's huge debate about the word conscious. And as soon as the word conscious pops in, a lot of minds can and emotions can slip to spirituality or religion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to find the simplest reason why the word conscious is popping up is really to look at the straight-on dictionary definition. I mean, you're doing something with full awareness and completely with the intention of what you're doing. So, meaning, if you're in the, inventing wacky financial instruments that just manipulate money and then perhaps hurt someone, then you would be fully aware that you're doing that.
Uh-huh.
Right? And so this is where the word conscious is even slipping into our business schools.
Huh.
And it's slow. I'm not saying it's all of a sudden a panacea, but last 2 weeks ago I was at an event called the Conscious Capitalists Institute, and fascinating because it's made up of some billion-dollar companies that believe in these principles and educators from major business schools that are slipping curriculum slowly in with these principles. So, it's really about full responsibility, full ownership, and there's a few ways that it actually manifests. But it is simple. Just don't allow anyone to think that it's kind of woo-woo and just spiritual and kumbaya-ish. It's serious business.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. I think we're moving into an era that, especially with the financial meltdown that we've experienced, that people, as much as they want to point the finger and say, well, these guys put me into this mess, I always maintain, well, who forced you to actually pick up that pen and sign the piece of paper?
Yeah.
We're all in this together. I think that's what we're coming down to. But now it seems the big question, and it sounds like this is what I'm hearing you say, is that we're beginning to realize now that we've done this, okay, what direction do we move now so that it just doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think if you have a business now, or if you're flirting to have a business, or you have a part-time one that you want to become whole and full-time, what's really important is that it is derived from such a place of passion that, almost using a double negative, you'll never stop. You won't stop. This is what I want to do, right? And when you think about it, we spend so much time in our businesses or in our employment of other people's businesses. What a blessing it would be to actually, I love doing this. I want to solve this problem locally, globally, in the United States, whatever it is, in a problem for a customer. And I want to do it, and I am wildly passionate about it. Because if you're not, now is the time to change that, right? Because this is what people are picking up on. This is like why someone was writing about Chipotle the way they are, right? They're passionate about. You go in and there's signs about what's in the food. What other restaurant does that?
Right.
Nobody. And it's speaking to me. I care about what I put in myself. So why, just because it's fast, does it mean I shouldn't care? So people are looking for this. So you should deeply care about what you're doing. It sounds so simple, but really think about it. You may love what you're doing every day. How many people don't? You've seen those kind of reports, right? 80% of the people don't like their job or whatever it is. Well, your business has to even be more, I want to express this way. Right? So that's a good checking question, a good way to start, because when you're really connected that way, it's really hard to do harmful things to other people.
Right.
So that's a really important first step.
Now, okay, so that's our first step, is that we want to be clear about what it is that truly fulfills us. And we've heard, and there are books out there and plenty of seminars that I'm sure of that say, well, follow your bliss and then the money will follow. But we, who's ever actually jumped into the swimming pool to do that, realize it's not that linear and it's not that simple. Describe why it is that people sometimes face the hurdles they do, and in some cases quit and say, it's just safer and easier to go and let somebody else worry about it.
Good point. Well, because, we all kind of get, we all love the inspiring stories and the shiny objects and, it's instant success, and we all get seduced by that in moments of weakness, because when you connect to something that is really passionate, sometimes the emotion overdraws things, right? It just overpowers it. So then you could actually be affected more emotionally. And as you said, it's a blend of linear processes and holistic processes. And it's finding that blend when you put them both together, because balance is really life. I mean, even though Earth is an amazing balancing act of things that came together, and now we have life. And in business is the same way. You've got to get it balanced. So you do have to learn skills. It is work. Mm-hmm. It is not, you see a get-rich-quick scheme thing. Oh, I'll promise you in 30 days you'll make all your money back and more. Run away.
It
doesn't happen. I mean, there's a book, I won't say by who, that I made $50,000 on the internet in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It took him 2 years to prepare to push the button to make $50,000 in 24 hours.
Right.
And if you read the book, you do learn that, but that's not what attracts us. So it's really kind of a moment of weakness that when we're really passionate, we somehow lose our mind a little bit. So we have to balance our thoughts and our tactics and our skills at the same time while staying on message and not losing faith of what you're really trying to create. Mm-hmm. And it's that balance act. That's why people slip off like that.
Now, tell us, Vito, what kind of businesses do you work with? Is there a specific genre, or is it pretty much just anybody that says, I feel stuck, I've been doing this for quite a while, and, I'm sure that even in your experience, I know we have too, sometimes you just can't come up with answers because you're so used to being in the trenches that's what you get used to seeing, so it's hard to do the alleged think outside the box. There's a cliche I wish somebody would just erase forever. I don't know how many times I get sick of think outside the box. No, let's start thinking inside of it, because thinking outside hasn't gotten me any further. But talk about the kind of businesses that you work with.
Well, we did definitely make it harder for ourselves as we started out, because we wanted to be Switzerland of business development. So it didn't matter to us what kind of business it was, because in reality, where the true power comes from is the clarity and decisions that the owner starts to step into, and the peers that the owner has, and other kinds of support that they get. So we see a wide range. I mean, we have had a car repair business. We've had a life coach. I'm just picking things. We've had a professional speaker. We've had an art store supply company. We've had a plumber. I mean, any business needs these principles that are really ingrained in what conscious business is. So it's not really about the granular items like, in my business, my margin is like this, because that's great. That's not where the problem is. Mm-hmm. The problem is a little bit deeper. It's a little bit of how you're approaching it, not exactly what you exactly charge for that product, or how you might actually use direct mail versus email versus, I have a bricks and mortar location. They're all people getting problems solved by a company. And so we find a wide range. I haven't been able to pin down anything. Mm-hmm. We just attract a wide range of people that are ready to make change, that actually want to be happy in their business, and they want to see it grow slowly. What's interesting is a study was done about conscious businesses and trying to coin this phrase, conscious capitalism, and they discovered that over a 10-year period of studying this group of businesses, they outperformed the S&P 9-1.
Wow.
This is it's in Firms of Endearment. Get the book and read it. Now that book may not tell you how to make that happen, but they're looking at it now going, oh my goodness, it's happening. Mm-hmm. So it can happen for any business.
That's very exciting. Now, how do you, as you step into a business, no matter what the business is, what do you evaluate, and then what are the steps from there? Does it actually vary because everybody has problems that are unique?
Well, it's interesting. You heard me earlier say sort of linear and holistic, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a linear path that we think is the ideal path to go through this. And because of that, sometimes it's a little frustrating depending on where someone is. Oh, I just want to work on this, or I just want to find my uniqueness, so that I can express it. Well, that's not where we really begin. We actually begin with something that you asked early on, like what drove you to do this mission, which in our world we use the word vision rather than mission, because the mission statement is used in a variety of interesting marketing ways. So we needed something a little closer to home. What are you really doing? What are you really seeing? What are you really trying to accomplish? Sometimes people then wind up changing what they're doing, or strengthening what they're doing, or organizing it. So we start at the inside with the entrepreneur. What's going to make them happy? Not just money, because we all want money. That's just
right.
That's air in a sense. So we need to look inside, and so it doesn't matter what business it is. Why are you a plumber? Why are you a life coach? Why do you write textbooks? Whatever it is. And we start there.
Sounds fascinating to be able to be in the kind of work that you do, to be able to help people, get their businesses moving along. What would you say are a couple of key elements where a person begins to become stuck?
When a concern pops up, okay, which is a fear in sheep's clothing, right? So doubt begins to slip in that, am I worthy to do this? Oh no! Right? Do I have enough experience? Even if they have the tough outside, sometimes it is that I can't step into that vision that you just helped me come to, and oh my goodness, I could see how this can roll out for 10 years, but me? Right. This is the most devastating one, and this is why you see something that sometimes helps, but not always, but you see such a huge wave of personal development programs out there, because we do have to keep our mindset correct as well. Because in reality, we know, especially in the United States, anybody can achieve anything. So the question is, do they want to actually? And this becomes very scary. And it seems funny, too, and I know you've experienced this, that as people, I'm sure one of the top things they say, well, what would move my business forward is if I could just get more money. It's amazing how many people think that that's really what's going to help, but it really is one of the few things that you really need. Yeah, it actually is, because what you need is strength within yourself, and then a peer group that's supporting it. I mean, the way we started was a small peer group. I mean, we came up with the idea for Brand You, and in 45 days there was a room full of people. And it was only because there were 3 or 4 of us that said, we're going to make a change in our life. We each have our own business, but we'll support one another. So you can't do it alone, but with a clarity and passion and vision, you can gain the excitement and energy and help of other people. And that's what you really need. Money is a byproduct. Exactly. Right? Money is a byproduct. Now, talk about some of the businesses that you've worked with, where they started as you got involved, and and what happened, how they progressed. Well, the one that I like the most, and just to be fair to all the businesses, I won't really mention the names, because there really is, of course, the truest part of, and when we work with people, it's very confidential, because there is internal work that has to be done. So a person was marketing products, making a nice little living, but always felt like it was a burden. Always felt like, I got to go to work and do this now. I mean, can you imagine having your own business and feeling that way? That's terrible. No, right? I couldn't. And I keep thinking there's something else. And so we used a few of our processes to go through, both on the fear side, but also in the vision and brand development side, the creation of something, where you're sort of given permission to actually birth something. And it's in that act of birthing when the person realized, oh my goodness, I am unique. I deserve this. I can do this. There is no one like me. And this is what the truth is, of course, because we're all unique emanations, right? We're all unique. And we have to feel our power about that. That person went on very quickly to get onto the Inc. 500 list.
Oh, wow.
So it is possible, and there are some really hard steps that are really simple.
Oh.
And when the unlock happens, so you can see from our website, there's people that have doubled their business or are happier. But I love that story because it was really some key components in different parts of our process when you get to sit there and go, oh my God, the light just went on.
Uh-huh.
And then to watch it just change from a Volkswagen Beetle into a Ferrari. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's exciting.
I know we've been doing our program for about 7 years, and we were on regular radio for a while, but we just found it just wasn't working. You know, you're dealing with advertisers; they want to eat up your time most of the time, and we're like, no, we wanted to keep it going on content, but we just couldn't seem to get it above ground, even though we feel we've got a very strong mission statement for what we do, and we found that going the direction we did has been working better because we can see tangible results in building and serving the audience. Now, I know that what's happening with you is that you have a $50 million subsidy that's going to be made available that you're going to be working with at least 10,000 businesses. Is there a particular criteria that you're looking for where people can get involved with something like this?
I think it's not necessarily a particular criteria that we're judging them by, but I'll tell you the criteria that where someone would excel. And that is they have some life experience, meaning whether they were working in a job or they had their own business, and they've learned something about solving a problem for a customer, right? So there's some experience there. Number two, that they want to actually express themselves through business, meaning they would like to have that feeling. They don't want to create a job for themselves. They actually want to help people through sharing this expression in the form of a business.
Oh, I see.
As compared to being a real estate flipper, right?
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that business, but that's a different kind of business. This is a business where I know I've learned something, and I'm going to find a variety of ways to share that with people and change something. And second, that they're willing to be an open book, meaning they're going to have to dig deep, because sometimes there's deep things that we've had actually people say, oh, I don't have to go to therapy this month. This feels so good. Okay? And that's when I know we're actually playing in the right area. If you want to play with business like you get the nice shiny round stone and you're flipping it on the lake to skip the water, it's not going to be that rich of an experience. It's not really going to get to that place. So they have to be open.
I know that we've over the years been involved in different groups and how do we help people increase business and so forth. And it's really fascinating because there's one thing, it seems like I say it every time that I'm out there, and I wonder whether anybody ever really follows this advice, but I say, have you ever learned to just simply listen? And people go, they kind of know what that is, but I mean sincerely listen. Now, when you're out there, do you listen to people who tell you about a problem that they're having, and do you, even though it may not relate to what you do in business, find a way that you can help them?
Well, each of us on the planet has, a particular little interesting skill set, and you sort of just tapped into mine. Why Kim and I are partners, we have really complementary but very different skill sets. So one of mine is kind of seeing what's really going on under the surface. Like even when there's a medical issue in the family, it's always like, oh, it's not the symptom, it's something else. And it's just something that I've been able to actually instill in some of our processes, because every one of our processes are step-by-step workbocks. These are not read the book and try to interpret and good luck. So when I get the opportunity to work with someone privately, which we do, occasionally, it's actually one of my things is listening to what's really happening. And so yes, once you can sort of get past the surface issues, very often you can get to the deeper one and have the person see that, and then that's when change begins.
This must be very exciting for you and your wife to be doing this.
It is, and it's very challenging. You'd think it would be easy to say, we have programs that we usually charge many thousands of dollars for, and we're trying to find a way to, subsidize it and bring it to people cheaper, because we want more people to have it. But then, we have the same issues every business has, right? Are we moving as fast as we thought we are? Are we being concerned by the economy and the circumstance out there? Are we becoming doubtful, or now you're trying to help more people that have more problems, and maybe the empathy muscle is getting too strong, and you can't really, sometimes you can't help because you'd be just in an emotional state. So just like any business, we have growth pains, concerns, and trying to share more with more people means that we have to reach more people. So, everything keeps changing. So it is rewarding. It's exciting. It's what fuels us to keep going at it. But just like everyone, we're going through changes.
Well, it's just like you said earlier in the program, when it comes to business, I think if there's ever going to be a realm of self-help that a person will find personal development, going into business for yourself is it. Because you will find out things about yourself you didn't even know or you thought were gone. But boy, do they surface.
Yeah, they will, yeah, because you sort of amped up, just the idea of going, well, I'm going to not get the job that just got closed down even though I got a nice, settlement, or I'm not going to go back to work and I'm going to do it myself. You just, turned up the dial. And what's interesting is sometimes turning up the dial is good, and sometimes all it does is create more noise. And that's when you see people that, run back because the noise was too great. And that is the internal work that you're talking about.
Fantastic world when it comes to business. So tell us about brandyou.com.
Well, this is where we've spent, this is the culmination, really, of 7 years of work, looking at the three crucial stages of business development or redevelopment, meaning, idea into model into living form, the creation of a brand, and how do you actually communicate the feeling of a brand, not the word of the brand, and then how do you actually build a marketing system? So, because that matches the brand and doesn't change it, right? This is really, really important. So we worked on this journey, and then probably about close to 1,000 entrepreneurs over those times, where we continue to develop and refine the processes, and this is where we make those processes available. There's one about clearing the path, which is making sure that your concerns, quote, quote, fear, is in control. How to work on what we call the business profit system, which is this 3-step foundation to build the business. And this is where we share that information. We also try to share some free gifts with people to give them a hint about what this is. Now, we've coined the phrase whole wealth because we wanted to share that it's a whole process, like we were talking before. It's holistic and linear, and it's wealth not only in money but in richness of expression in life. And we wanted to share some gifts, and you can find them at wholewealth.com. There's a couple of, there's a brand inside you, there's big business success no matter your size, and then there's an interview that was done by Boyd, I forgot his last name, Boyd, who interviewed us about what conscious business is, so that you can get a little more detail than what we're talking about today.
Well, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the program. Go ahead and give out some contact information where people can find out more about this, because, one of our missions on the Beyond 50 radio program has always not only to talk about tools and things that are available out there for people who are either wanting to go into business, they're in business, or they're kind of, wanting to move even further, with their business. And that also up into and includes really some wonderful business stories out there, some people that really rolled up their sleeves and how that turned out, because we feel sometimes the more stories that are out there that people can relate with, they'll realize, gee whiz, I'm not the only one going through this.
Yeah, this is certainly Kim's mission. We do have blog.brandyou.com, where we're starting to roll out a lot of our member stories and other kinds of product news, so that's a nice free resource. At brandyou.com, and that's the word brand, the letter U.com, there's a special report, 15 Mistakes That Kill Business Success. That's free. It's a PDF, really fun reading, and you'll find one or two things that you could probably change yourself. And then, of course, at wholewealth.com is this little conscious business kit with these 3 downloads, 2 audios, and a PDF book. And it's our way of trying to, share back and hopefully point you in the right direction, even if you aren't able to engage in our programs today.
Very good. Well, Vito, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Well, thank you. And, 50 is the new 30 or however that goes?
Yeah, 50 is the new 30.
So get out there and do it. And thank you for sharing the airwaves with us. And it was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you very much, Vito.
Bye-bye.
We also encourage you, the listeners out there, to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That's the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. We'll have more contact information for brandu.com. We thank you for tuning in. I'm Daniel Davis. This is the Beyond 50 radio program. And remember, live your day past halfway.